only absorb about 20% of our nutrients orally. Whether you're eating food or you're taking a supplement, you're only going to absorb about 20% of it. And that's an average. Some is 50%, some is 10%. Intravenous wise, if we give something intravenously, it's much closer to 100%.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. It's your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And today I am super excited for you to meet my guest because he's been a mentor of mine. In fact, he's one of the pioneers of performance and longevity medicine. He's Dr. Craig Koniver out of South Carolina. You've actually seen him on major podcasts out there, the Aubrey Marcus podcast, the Ben Greenfield Fitness podcast. And I've certainly learned a lot from him in my journey to become a performance and longevity expert myself. Now, I really hope that you enjoy this episode. And if you are having a good time thus far listening to the episodes, upgrading your life, upgrading your health, I hope that you subscribe to this podcast. I hope you're sharing it with your family and friends. And please consider leaving us a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/thrivestate. Now, again, let me tell you about this guest of mine because I wouldn't be where I am right now without some of his teachings. He's Dr. Craig Koniver, and he's really become the go-to physician to professional athletes, Navy SEALs, Fortune 100 executives, and anyone interested in truly optimizing their health and performance. As such, Dr. Koniver has a vast experience in utilizing tools that drive results for his clients. Every week, Dr. Koniver has people actually flying in from all over the world to his clinic to work with them at his home base in South Carolina. He is really somebody that has navigated through the disease model of conventional medicine and really transformed his practice into a modern wellness and performance-minded system. I've certainly learned a lot from him over the years, and I hope that you're going to learn a lot from him as we take you on a primer of performance medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, my mentor, Dr. Craig Koniver. Dr. Craig Koniver, Dr. K, welcome to the Thrive State podcast.
Thank you, Kien. I appreciate you having me here. This is awesome to see you.
It is so good to see you. For those who don't know, before I had started my clinic, I had a few key people that, who have been mentors to me in my professional career. And Dr. Koniver has been a pioneer in this field of performance medicine. So thank you for being a mentor to me over the past couple of years.
Oh, for sure. No, it's been awesome getting to know you and see kind of your trajectory in this space, see you taking off. Yeah.
Super. Well, thank you so much. All right. So we're going to start with 5 to Thrive. This is the portion of the episode, which is pre-meat of the interview. And that's really to lubricate the conversation where things are. 5 quick questions. Question number 1, who has been your greatest mentor or teacher?
It's a really good question. I don't know if I've ever gotten that question. I know it's kind of a common one. I'd say right now I'm gonna answer that. My wife, Kelly, for real. She's been tremendous in, we just have a different lens of the world in terms of our personalities.
Yeah.
And she's a super hard worker, super tenacious. But, the thing that she's taught me the most that stands out is her ability to forgive and move on. Has been tremendous. Just on a personal level, I think a lot of us struggle with at times holding on to things and staying in the, not necessarily the past, but being frustrated. And she's just given me the gift of how do you move on quickly and look forward has been tremendous.
Beautiful. Question number 2 leads right in from there because that question is the favorite activity you like to do with your wife.
Easy. We like to do our infrared sauna.
Okay.
We have it in our garage here, and every night, pretty much every night, we're in there for a good hour and 20 minutes.
Beautiful answer. Number 3, your most challenging life experience.
My most challenging life experience probably came last fall. Over Labor Day, I was diagnosed with this portal vein thrombosis, or these blood clots in my liver veins, hospitalized for several days, kind of a scary time, told I had pancreatic cancer, which was then ruled out. Just to, kind of thrown a major curveball I wasn't expecting. So
Sounds good. We're going to go deeper into that story a little bit later. Number 4, your greatest regret.
Wow, my greatest regret. I don't know that I have a lot of regrets. I really don't. I'd say looking back, I think I wish I played ice hockey. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like I don't have a lot of regrets, but looking back, like that's a sport. I love sports. I'm a big sports fan. I wish I had invested in learning how to play ice hockey.
Okay, beautiful. Last question. What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of showing up every day to be there for my wife, my patients, the staff, just being present and doing my best to be present and
That's
being
beautiful.
a role model. Yeah.
The 5 to Thrive, 1,500 points. You win a date with me. So I'll be coming over to South Carolina to visit. Dinner's on me. Well, thank you, Dr. K, for really being such a positive influence in my life. And you are really one of these pioneers in the space of performance medicine. Now, before we get there, I want to go back and ask you, what was your road to medicine to begin with?
Yep.
And then how did you transition between going from a family doctor into this new space of performance medicine?
Yeah, so my dad and granddad were both physicians. My dad is still a practicing radiologist. And so it's kind of, just like you, kind of always been there in terms of my growing up, health and medicine. And I've just, as long as I can remember, said I want to go into medicine. I knew I could do that and sought out that approach in terms of, wanting to help people, but bringing in the science side. And so that seemed like a good fit. And then I did a family medicine residency because I wanted to me, what was most appealing about medicine was building relationships with people, learning about people, getting to know people. And I still believe that to this day. And then after my residency, I wanted to open my own practice, which was kind of unusual at the time, being a primary care physician and not joining a group or being a hospitalist. But I wanted to do things differently. I started out with these nutritional IVs. This was back in like 2006. This was well before, even these hangover IVs were popular. Yeah. And that kind of was the opening the gate or the door to me kind of getting, putting my foot on that side of the world of health and wellness that was different than the pharmaceutical model. So that was really the gateway, those nutritional IVs. And from there, it's evolved in many, many different realms.
Beautiful. And what I wanted this podcast to be was really a primer for the tools used in performance medicine, but not only just the tools. And I know this is something you talk about a lot. We do have tools which are important, but it's also looking at each patient individually and holistically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so. When I got into this world of nutritional IVs, and at the time it was this functional medicine world, which is still popular. I just don't totally subscribe to that type of thinking per se, because a lot of functional medicine doctors and kind of the whole paradigm of functional medicine is we're going to get to the root problem. We're going to do a lot of lab testing, and then we're going to get our patients on a lot of supplements, right? Mm-hmm. And while that's all worthy and can work a lot of times, what I don't totally subscribe is that it's almost robotic as its nature, meaning, the idea or the mantra of taking this for that is still embedded into that functional medicine. Like, okay, you have these 6 diagnoses, so we're going to give you these 6 supplements. So my kind of come into this world is I call it performance medicine because I want to help people not only feel better, but perform better. Yeah. And so I think again, I still do some of those same things. We do lots of different lab testing. I certainly am a fan of nutritional supplements, but it's more invested in how do we get people operating at their highest level of efficiency. And I think as doctors, as we can play a large role in that because, we've been on the disease side for so long, and now we can come into our own on the wellness, the optimization side, and it's equally, as valuable.
That's beautiful. I think your path is so unique because you really started off with, this IV meds, but you've really branched out and become a early pioneer and adopter, but you really branched out and took in a lot of these performance tools and really one of the first to use them. And so I really wanted to give people a taste of all the tools that are out there. You, I know, being a very early adopter and pioneer, and thank you for teaching it to me, which I get to use with my high level clients as well. So let's start diving into each one of them. Let's talk a little bit about peptides. Now, what are peptides? Are they FDA approved? And where can people start to get them?
Well, it's peptides in the very, defining aspect of peptides. Peptides are chains of amino acids. So we call it a peptide if it's less than 40 amino acids in length. We call it a protein if it's more than 40 amino acids. So peptides are small molecules, and they do a variety of things for us. They exert, a lot of different biochemical reactions. And so there's lots of peptides, right? There's peptides that help with growth hormone release. There's peptides for the immune system, peptides for inflammation, peptides for the nervous system. And so what's really, really nice about peptides is for most people, most of the time, we don't see any sort of negative reaction. Like it's super rare. So very, very, very safe. And, as physicians, our first kind of tenet is first do no harm. With peptides, that's certainly true. And we've seen them over the last few years, in which case we've been using them. They're very powerful tools, again, because they're safe, but for the most part, because they're so effective in helping create an optimal cellular environment, whether you want to help push out more growth hormone, reduce the level of inflammation, whatever that means. Peptides are safe and effective. And so they've become really this champion of how do we push people to ways that supplements just can't, you know? In terms of are they FDA approved, they're not FDA approved, just like supplements aren't FDA approved either, right? Like, so vitamin C, for example, so people know, has never been FDA approved, never will be, right? It's outside of the FDA approval process. That doesn't mean the FDA is not aware of it though, right? I think there's a distinction. The FDA is certainly aware of peptides. In fact, they're coming down on some of these peptide companies and saying, hey, you can't be promoting them. And really the issue goes back to, which goes back to a lot of things with the FDA, is you can't make claims about something, right? So if a doctor or company is saying, hey, this will cause this, that's a no-no, right? And so that is certainly true with peptides. But peptides, very safe, very effective. People can go and purchase peptides themselves. Again, I think of them like supplements. For the most part, they're injected, so they're subcutaneous. So again, very safe though. So people can go to different sites like peptidesciences.com and purchase peptides. Very
and
safe.
You have a very, very robust, and studied up and put together blends that people can get on your site.
We do. So my experience with peptides is a little different because we've been using them so long. What we learned is when we combine peptides or stack peptides together, we get much better results, right? Just like people stacking supplements, we'll do the same with peptides. So I've come up with different protocols where we combine those peptides together, because what we learned over time is people get tired of injecting 3 to 6 to 7 peptides a day. So we came up with a way to do it for them where we combine the peptides ahead of time. And so they're just doing 1 or 2 shots a day. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, some of the questions I've gotten earlier on as people started to study on peptides is, I heard that the FDA is starting to shut down peptide pharmacies and things like that from being able to produce them. So does that mean that they are illegal for use, or what is the legality of using products such as this?
Again, I think it's a gray area. I think individuals have access to peptides. I think individuals can use peptides. I think it is up to the individual to decide. There's a lot of disclaimers with some of these peptide companies because they say they haven't been FDA approved. My thought and philosophy is I want people to be able to have the, option to experience all of it, right? Under the guidance of people like yourself and myself, where we can help them do it safely. I think that's a better format than sequestering things on the black market or making them seem like, oh, I got to do it myself. I think that's a lot more dangerous than opening things up, allowing us to guide them in that process. So so to conclude, like peptides, people can access peptides. Peptides are very, very safe as long as people follow the standard dosing regimens. And if they're working with, doctors like you and me and others, they're going to have a much better experience.
Great answer to that. Next, let's go into the realm stem cells, exosomes, and some biologics.
Yep.
Can you speak to what they are as a class of treatment options and what they've been used for?
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring it up because this is timely, because in 2017, I believe, the FDA gave a 3-year approval process for umbilical cord stem cells. Umbilical cord stem cells, for example, if we use that as an example, are considered live cells, and so as a live cell, they have to kind of fall under this certain use. Part of that certain use is, minimally manipulated, whatever that means. And it's interesting because the FDA just put out a letter and are going to be cracking down that stem cells, umbilical cord stem cells, will probably, they extended, it was first from 2017 to 2020. With COVID, they extended another year, which takes us into May this month of 2021. Umbilical cord stem cells are going to be taken off the market. They will no longer be available. And that's kind of a black and white rule by the FDA. Exosomes, and again, it depends on the resource of the exosomes, but the exosomes fall outside of that because they're given a different classification than stem cells, because exosomes are not live cells. So exosomes, not to get too far down this path, but exosomes are acellular material. They're like the FedEx agent carrying the message to, the person or to the cell or the tissue. So exosomes carry the message that the same stem cell will carry, but they do it more efficiently. And so exosomes, again, certain companies will be able to continue the use of exosomes, meaning making them available, and certain companies won't if they're not compliant. And so this is going to come up now this summer of which companies can survive this and which companies are going to go under, because the FDA is cracking down on this. It's very interesting. It's timely.
Yeah, we know that people have used a lot of these products for rejuvenation. People have used them in the scalp, which, you've done so, and you've also seen my penis because you've injected that as well. People have been using them in joints. So how are they working? I mean, are they working to reduce inflammation? Are they working to target area for repair? What have been some of the uses for these cellular products?
I think it's a good question. I think if we look at stem cells and exosomes as similar in that they are signaling molecules.
Yes.
So I think people can understand that if there's an inflammatory process in the body, right, what that means is part of our immune system is there to calm down that inflammation. Now, the easiest example I use is if you had a gunshot wound to your shoulder, right? You have an excess of immune cells, inflammatory cells that go to the scene of the crime, right? To stop the bleeding, to allow that tissue to recover. Well, after a few days of those inflammatory cells, those immune cells being there, the bleeding is stopped, they can go away. The problem is many times we get stuck and our immune system doesn't know to go away. And so we end up with this chronic inflammatory kind of site or state. What stem cells and exosomes do, and even PRP, platelet-rich plasma, is they're going to be a counter irritant. And by a counter irritant, they're going to trigger a different immune response that says, hey, wake up, it's time to go back home. And so sometimes we need to do things radically. But again, both stem cells, exosomes, and even PRP, very, very safe. We don't see any side effects really at all. And they allow for, number one, calm down inflammation by being a counter irritant. Number two, because they're signaling molecules, they're going to signal for this anti-inflammatory cascade. And number three, they're going to lay down tissue or cells that is rejuvenated. It's fresh. So as opposed to, I'm 47 years old. So if I used exosomes now, I'd be getting a fresh start wherever I put those exosomes or stem cells. So they are, regenerative, rejuvenative to the tissue. And that's what's so exciting about them, because we can literally, as you know, rejuvenate things that are hard to rejuvenate.
Beautiful. Let's move over to one of the things that I know is a cornerstone in your clinic that I've certainly learned from and certainly gotten some samples of, of IVs there, is your NAD and NAD IVs. So can we talk about what NAD is? And maybe let's talk about some of the precursors and the different forms we deliver in it. and how somebody might use that for performance?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question because we're big fans of NAD here. We've been privileged to use it for many, many years. So simply put, NAD is a chemical cousin to niacin. So vitamin B3 is niacin. NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is a chemical cousin. Think of it as a coenzyme. It does several things. Number one, it's the rate limiting substrate our mitochondria uses to make ATP energy. So the mitochondria are the battery in the cell. Anything we eat, fuel related, whether it's fat, carbs, or protein, we're going to break that down to biochemical energy. And we do that through this mitochondria, and we need NAD to do that. What we know from a lot of research now over the last 5 years is as we get older, stress out our bodies, different genetics, we have different capabilities of making that NAD. As we get older, though, we lose some of that capability, and that contributes to not only the aging process, but our threshold for getting cancer, diabetes, neurodegenerative things. So what we know is that using NAD or resupplying or restocking our stores with NAD help make us younger, help us make more energy. They're also, it's a signaling molecule in the nervous system, so it's like a reset to the nervous system. So we use it certainly for people with anxiety, depression, PTSD, but we use it a lot for people on the cognitive performance as well as physical performance side to get people moving, get them feeling better, have more energy. From our standpoint, it's foundational. Getting more NAD in your system is a foundational tool. So we use it intravenously. It's the gold standard, but there's other ways to do it too.
Yeah, imagine your cell's battery pack, and just imagine refilling that battery pack, which decreases over time as we age. So really kind of rejuvenating all the cells and all the battery pack of all the cells in your body is what NAD does. It also seems to activate the sirtuin genes in our body, which is important for anti-aging.
Yeah, so that we learned through caloric restriction over time, leading to longer lifespan, and then caloric restricted mimetics like resveratrol, and then eventually to NAD. That NAD, the sirtuin enzymes that you talk about are NAD dependent enzymes, meaning without NAD they can't work. And as we activate, came about with sirtuin 1, we learned that was a life extending, enzyme. So we absolutely need NAD to not only live our best life, have our best quality, but live our longest, for sure.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by Thrive State MD Immunity Supplement. I actually developed this supplement at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. As some of you may know, I'm a frontline healthcare worker and have worked directly with COVID-19 patients. Some of you may also know that during that time, my fiance was pregnant with my daughter. I had a bonus daughter at home, and I also had elderly parents I needed to protect. I wanted to serve my patients at the highest level while making sure that the people around me were safe. And I couldn't find a product that was out there that actually had quality ingredients at meaningful dosages that would keep my immune system operating at its optimal form. I ended up having to buy supplements from multiple different sources to get the right quality, the right quantity, and the right formulation of an immune product I know would keep me safe. And while I never got sick using that formulation, it costed me hundreds and hundreds of dollars. The Thrive State Immunity Formula is a premium immune formula designed to enhance the body's own natural immune defenses. It is a unique blend of well-researched vitamins, minerals, and medicinal mushrooms, including vitamin C and D3, zinc, quercetin, astragalus, cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail, and beta-glucan. Kaya is now born. She's 2 months old as of the time of this recording. I'm still continuing to serve by treating COVID-19 patients, and I feel really confident about my immune system, applying the techniques outlined in my book, Thrive State, and taking the Thrive State MD Immunity Supplement. If you haven't already, pick up my book at thrivestatebook.com. And if you would like an immunity supplement of your own, the listeners of the Thrive State podcast get 20% off by using the code THRIVE20. Remember, you are your best medicine. Now let's get back to the episode. Beautiful. Now, one of the things that, I felt really rejuvenated after was getting a IV push of something that you coined and termed the fast vitamin IV. It's one of these things that, I've gotten every time I came over to your clinic. why does it work so well? And, why does it work so well compared to some of the, maybe take an oral form of supplements? And how would you compare that to longer drip IVs, which you see at some clinics?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So this is just an average that we found over the years that we only absorb, and the research proves this, that we only absorb about 20% of our nutrients orally. Whether you're eating food or you're taking a supplement, you're only going to absorb about 20% of it. And that's an average. Some is 50%, some is 10%. Intravenous wise, if we give something intravenously, it's much closer to 100%. And that's 100% of the time. So we know that from use of chemotherapy, antibiotics. When we're injecting things into the vein, we have much higher bioavailability. What we learned over time, what I learned is that when I concentrate those nutrients, and a fast vitamin is a concentrated blend of B vitamins, lots of magnesium and amino acids, we're getting a much broader response from the individual in terms of how they feel. More energy, better mood, sleeping better, exercise is more intense. All these positive things come from concentrating that. So it kind of flips the script. The typical IV or nutrient IV is we dilute those nutrients into a bag of saline, let that drip in over time. With the fast vitamin, I learned, we give it quickly, 30 to 60 seconds, we get a more robust response. So what's nice about that is people feel better, but then because it's so fast, people can do it on a regular basis. So instead of doing it, once a month because you don't have time, people are doing it once a week on a regular basis because it literally takes 3 minutes.
That's beautiful. That's the fast vitamin IV. I know you've also started using some IV phototherapy in your clinic. Can we talk about, what your results has been with that and why you've implemented that strategy?
Yeah, I'm actually really interested in and still learning a lot about it. But light, as you know, is the most efficient form of energy transfer, right? We know it's the most efficient. So people are becoming familiar with things like infrared sauna, where we're using different wavelengths for healing properties. So we have this device out of Germany that delivers these different wavelengths. We use red, infrared, blue, green, yellow through a fiber optic cable that goes intravenously. And so what that's doing is that's passing those wavelengths. And again, it goes back to that mitochondria. Those mitochondria, sitting on those mitochondrial membrane are different molecules that can absorb the light and create an electrochemical change. And all of healing really comes down to is making that healing change or that contrast in energy or energy transfer. So using light and combining it with things like NAD, combining it with vitamins, combining it with peptides, whatever it is, we're going to be more efficient and get better results over time. So it's actually a really exciting endeavor. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems to function through the alterations in the mitochondria, and some a mitochondrial booster is this photolight therapy. Well, that's great. Let's talk now a little bit about ozone.
Sure.
We heard of ozone being, a layer in our stratosphere, but how are people using that? Is it the same thing as the ozone being used medically now?
So we're talking about using intravenous ozone.
Right.
And there's different formats for ozone for sure, but historically people were using ozone for chronic disease, for poor healing wounds, for people with, chronic fatigue or chronic diseases. And so traditionally, like for example, ozone is used industrially, ozone gas is put into used cars because it removes all the odors and works very efficiently. When we use ozone gas, we add it to someone's blood, where actually it's an antimicrobial, number one. Number two, that ozone, which is O3, quickly converts to O2, which is oxygen. So it's a way to get more oxygen in the system. And so it provides for people kind of an endurance boost, a little pep in their step. We combine it with NAD. We also use it with things like exosomes and other different therapies, the IV laser, because you're just getting, again, we're coming at this from different angles. So anytime we can add more oxygen to the system, it's one of the most powerful nutrients for sure.
So the mechanism of action there seems to be both as an antimicrobial and as a oxygen booster in the body.
It is. And so it's coming to light more commonly now with COVID, right? And all these people, not necessarily acute COVID, but long COVID, where people are struggling to recover from something like that, which is an assault on the immune system, the inflammatory system. and you can use ozone as a tool to help get people back faster. That combined with NAD has been a wonderful gift for people for sure.
Now, there's been basically different ways of delivering ozone rectally, as you
Yep.
had mentioned, combining it with your own blood. And there's something also called the 10 pass. Would you kind of briefly go over each one of those things and
Sure.
what you find to be more useful, if any?
Yeah. So what we do at our practice is we're going to do it intravenously where we add it to someone's blood. So what we do is we start an IV, we drain a certain amount of their own blood into a bag. We have an ozone generator. So we generate ozone gas from oxygen, add that ozone gas to the blood bag, and then let it drip back in. That's the traditional way of doing it. That's how we like doing it. The 10 pass ozone is a more pressurized system, almost kind of like dialysis, but not quite, where the system is drawing the blood out, ozonating it, and then putting it back in. And that can work well too. It's more concentrated, a longer process, more expensive. And there's been some, not a lot, some of injuries to the veins. So I've just stuck with the kind of the classical ozone. Yeah, people can get rectal ozone. Again, ozone's a gas. So people can get, kind of syringes of ozone that they can use rectally to help with their gut healing. We don't do that at our clinic, but lots of clinics do. Yeah.
Amazing. And another thing that I've learned over in your clinic was the use of ketamine. And I found this to be such a beautiful medicine, and I've started using them, and doing a ketamine type of treatments in a ceremonial fashion. But, it's been used to treat depression, PTSD, anxiety, but seems to also get people back into a state of, dissolving their ego and back to self. What have been maybe some of the more miraculous stories? What are the uses you find ketamine is good for?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So it's come into light in the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years where we're using ketamine, mostly intravenously. These clinics are using intravenous ketamine at a very small dose compared to the anesthesia dose, because it's traditionally used in the operating room to help put people to sleep and keep them, keep them unconscious while they're being operated on. What we're talking about is using almost a microdose, a much smaller dose based on their weight to help kind of shift that nervous system. And so we find it most useful probably with, more severe cases of things like PTSD and anxiety, some depression, because ketamine is a pattern disruptor.
Yeah.
And we do it differently. We combine it with NAD therapy so that we get the synergy of the ketamine. What ketamine seems to do is it slows down glutamate, the neurotransmitter glutamate across the synapses. Glutamate's the one neurotransmitter that's used for memory consolidation, helping to form our personality. So it helps slow that down, but it also increases glutamate production throughout the nervous system. So you kind of get what's interesting about ketamine is, in fact, they've compared it to SSRIs like Prozac and find that ketamine works instantaneously to elevate someone's mood, or something like Prozac and another SSRI takes 3 to 4 weeks. So very, very safe when used appropriately and can be a great tool for people. The downside of ketamine is if it's not used appropriately, it does have abuse potential. It has a negative connotation in kind of society. People are like, oh, it's a street drug. But again, I think used appropriately, used as a therapeutic tool, it can provide a lot of value.
Yeah, I lead a lot of my ketamine ceremonies with an intramuscular shot, which I've learned from you, and I find that actually has given patients more of a psychedelic type of experience rather than a slow drip over an IV. Have you found that to be true in administering it yourself as well?
Yeah, we don't do it intravenously because I think intravenously requires just a bigger setup, a lot more
Yeah,
monitoring, takes a lot longer. And I also like the intramuscular for select patients because we can combine it with NAD at the same time. And
right.
so we're getting more out of it. And so it's not just that we're giving people ketamine, it's we're actually giving them a full spectrum of therapies at the same time.
That's beautiful. I think I've run quite a bit of gamut to give people a primer of some of the tools that are out there. I want to get into your personal story of the blood clot, but before I
Yeah.
do, did I miss any other sort of new and exciting therapies that are offered over in your clinic?
We're starting to use, I mean, we've been using them for a while, but are using more and more some interesting polyphenol compounds intravenously. So things like curcumin, resveratrol, green tea extract. other molecules like, and getting into the cellular senolytics or cellular senescence. So fisetin and apigenin, these are different, quercetin, these are different compounds that can help with the liver, but also help in that cellular senescence. And so we can't announce the details yet, but we're close to doing a venture actually globally, worldwide, where we're going to be able to offer these different therapies, hopefully around the world. And that's going to be kind of one of the main features, because these polyphenol compounds, as you know, you take them orally. This is why people eat colorful fruits and vegetables.
Right.
We can concentrate them, give them intravenously. And that's going to be, again, when you combine, it's combining these therapies. You combine them with NAD, you combine them with vitamins, you combine them with peptides, you combine them with the laser. Now you're stacking all these amazing tools. You're able to really kind of reset a person's nervous system and get them feeling better in a matter of weeks versus years. It's quite exciting.
That's amazing. I can't wait to learn from you. You guys have all just received sort of a primer of all these new and exciting tools. And as Dr. Koniver would also say, there's also hormone optimization, which we're not really going to get into, but all these are kind of tools in the toolbox, but you still need to understand that crux of health is still very holistic, which involves a very good lifestyle, sleep, nutrition, exercise, and everything you talk about emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I think about it is, there are different dials that we can turn, right? And so there's a dial for your mood, there's dial for sleep, there's dial for hormones. And what we've learned over time is that it takes time, right? And so if someone's committed to optimizing their health, their performance, it's not a switch they can just flip and then, because as you know, if there's change that's made super quick, it tends to not last. And so it's a commitment to all these different facets of someone's life that we can help motivate them to take charge of, that we see the biggest difference.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, I want to go back to that very scary moment where you developed a blood clot basically in your mesenteric vein, or the vein that actually empties out your visceral organs or your gut. How did that happen? And what do you think now? I mean, you've gone through, and when it happened, you probably went to a hospital and then gotten conventional medical care.
For sure.
Really, when should we use that versus when should we use this performance medicine? But you really seem to embody that, really know when to use what, right? So
I'm taking a blood thinner, Coumadin, which I'll be on the rest of my life. So I know for a fact, if I didn't have a blood thinning agent back in September, I'd be dead. Like the blood clots in my portal veins, mesenteric veins, were, pretty extensive, getting worse, and they would have gone to my lungs. I would have gotten a pulmonary embolism. I would have died without the use of blood thinners. I know that for a fact. So we have to be grateful for conventional medicine. I think the key is when to use it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that in the disease state world of conventional medicine, those types of therapies are game changers. They're life-saving. And we can use that if we need antibiotics, if you're in the hospital, if you're in the intensive care unit. And really, I think it's all good. I like for people to have options. And what I enjoy getting up every day is seeing patients and presenting those options. What's been ignored or kind of segregated out by the conventional medical world, in many respects, the mainstream media world, are these kind of more ancient healing modalities, like we're talking about, that, using nutrients, using fitness, using thought patterns, meditation, all these things that we can put together, combine with some pharmaceuticals. That's where we see, I think, the greatest growth. For me, I developed the severe abdominal pain in August. Lasted about 3 weeks, finally got a CAT scan, had extensive blood clots in my liver veins, went to the hospital, got put on blood thinners, and I've done great since then. We don't really know why. I think we've tested things upside down, can't really find a reason. It's very, very fluky, but I learned a lot from that experience and certainly have gratitude for it.
No, that's amazing. People who are seeking performance medicine, who's understanding that, hey, we shouldn't just be reliant on medications, seem to shun conventional medicine. But I think there's a time and place for everything. And I think there's a lot more we can do to prevent. There's a lot more we can do to make people better. But there is a role for some of the amazing advances in conventional medicine.
Yeah, and even if you take something like natural molecules like peptides, but we've learned that we can inject them is going to work way better than swallowing them. Like
Right.
that's using technology. And we can't shun the fact that the advent of pharmaceuticals have led us down this path in amazing ways that we certainly need to incorporate in our toolbox. I just think most doctors and most providers come at it with this sense of like that's the only option. And I know you subscribe to the same philosophy I subscribe to is we want lots of tools for our patients, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, really applauding you for all this success. I know that you opened up a new clinic just last year and it's filled to capacity now. I know you got a lot of projects on the pipeline. What are you most excited about? What's happening with your clinic, with Koniver Wellness as a whole that you could talk about now?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, you're right. We moved into our new office last March. We're now needing to renovate to create more space. What am I most excited about? A couple of things. One, like I said, I alluded to this venture that we hopefully will be a part of, not just in the States, but worldwide, in Europe, other places around the world that we can kind of bring some of the things we do, these tools to other people around the world. We're looking at the second thing I'm probably most excited about. We're looking at some novel ways of bringing NAD to the world. So we just introduced a NAD chewing gum, so people can get a functional gum where it has NAD, caffeine, and CBD. So it's just different ways. We have some other things in the pipeline from a product perspective that we're big fans of providing people with options. NADs, again, we talked about that kind of the centerpiece. So we're really excited about that. And then continuing to innovate in terms of how do we use these different therapies or modalities to get the most efficient results, right? Because all of us are dealing with things, all of us need help, we need the support. And I think probably in that vein, doing it in a way that's, where we can work together, where we have community to bring people together and not be so territorial and tearing people apart.
And that's what I love about you. I mean, when I came over to your clinic to learn, you basically gave me the entire recipe book, and I'm so grateful for that, and that I get to translate that to people over in LA. So I want people who are watching, whether you be a healthcare provider or a patient, to really get to know this information and these tools a little bit deeper. Where can patients find you? Where can providers find you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, our website's probably the best, koniverwellness.com, or on Instagram. That's our only social media outlet. And we're there most of the time at Koniver Wellness. Both places would be good. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Now, here's the last question. You've got so many tools in your tool belt, gone through so many different experiences, but in your life, what has been your best medicine?
That's a really good question. Wow. You ask good questions, Kien. I like it. Very good questions. I think, what I'll say is this, and it goes back to being in that hospital. And I was told, I'll try to make this concise, but I was told I had pancreatic cancer. I was 46 years old, pretty scary time. And I had to do an MRI to kind of evaluate whether that was true or not. And they took a while because I had this heparin dripping in. It took them a while to transfer me to the radiology department. So I got to sit there for over an hour by myself while the radiology techs were talking in the back, and then sit in the MRI scanner for a good hour or so. And it was in that moment where I felt this concentration of people thinking about me in this community. And it dawned on me that all of us are part of both a small community and a large community. And the medicine of that community and the thoughts and prayers that I felt personally is something that has changed my life for sure. And I want to bring that to other people, because that is how we make progress. Just like we talked about, working together, holding hands, doing it, walking together. That is going to be everyone's best medicine, in my opinion. And I was fortunate in a weird way because I got to experience it when I was sick. And I think there's ways we can do it better when people are well. Certainly in this optimization performance space, a lot of it can be cutthroat, right? Like we're trying to do our best for ourselves. And I think there's ways that we can do our best for ourselves for others, and learning how to translate that and make that real. So that's my best medicine.
Oh, that's beautiful. Community and co-elevation being our best medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Craig Koniver, my mentor, performance and longevity pioneer. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Thank you, Kien. It's a pleasure. I appreciate, being able to talk to you and have this level of conversation.
Thanks again. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're finding this podcast to be valuable, if you're learning a lot, please share with your friends and family members. And please consider leaving a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. That review is really going to help the show grow. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State, at thrivestatebook.com. I would love to connect with you on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and LinkedIn at KienVuMD. Remember, you are your best medicine.